consent is something that can be withdrawn at any time, whether you're talking about trespassing, loaning money, but in one state it cannot be withdrawn for sex. This is happening in the state of North Carolina. If you are a woman, if sex has already started, you cannot legally stop what is happening thanks to a legal loophole. Now, there is one state senator who is working to stop this, and that is Senator Jeff Jackson. He says North Carolina is the only state in the country where no doesn't really mean no. Right now, if a woman tells a man to stop having sex, he is under no legal obligation to do so, as long as she initially consented. If sex turns violent, the woman has no right to tell the man he must stop. So he has proposed Senate Bill 553. It states that a person who continues to engage in intercourse after consent is withdrawn can be charged with rape. The bill applies specifically to vaginal intercourse. Now, this happened after a case in 1977 in which a woman she engaged in sex with her estranged husband, and he turned violent, and she told him to stop, and he didn't. And later, the Supreme Court of the state ruled that this doesn't count as rape because she consented initially. And it's coming up again now because of the case of Aaliyah Palmer. Aaliyah Palmer says she had initially consented to have sex with a man, but withdrew her consent when he turned violent. I said, "You're hurting me, stop." She repeated this demand several times, but he refused to stop. 4 soldiers who had been present at the party and who filmed Palmer's sexual assault were charged with peeping Tom counts, but the man who forced himself on her was not charged with any crime thanks to this loophole.
I mean, first of all, there's just so many things wrong. It makes you embarrassed to be a guy. It makes me embarrassed. Like, who's filming it? What are you doing? Why are you filming it? And it's not like, I got it. If you were having sex with a woman and she told you to stop, it would be disappointing. I've been disappointed literally millions of times in my life by various things. Like, just deal with some disappointment and go on with your day. And the fact that we have to codify this into law is crazy.
It is crazy because it's just like, it looks like someone who's never had sex made this law. Where it's just like, oh, you can't stop, you're a robot, there's a machine and you can't turn it off. And you're 2 human beings. This is a very, I would say, close or intimate act. You do have control over the situation, or at least you should.
And if you're gonna, 100% of men are gonna go through their lives and never have this happen because you're not acting like an adult. But these, like, somehow, but again, you're not gonna turn violent. I get it, that's the main reason, I guess, that the circumstances would change. Obviously, if somebody tells you to stop doing anything, you should stop doing it. And this should be number 1 on the list. But if you get told to stop punching a person, you should also stop punching them. This is you turned what you thought was I can't believe I'm about to use this word, it grosses my wife out, a tender, potentially loving act into violence in an instant. Just stop, man.
Well, look, Ben is right, of course. The word stop, there's no misinterpreting that. I might take issue with the tender sex thing because I think there are people doing it in a lot of different ways, right? And so, and I think Ben knew that. That's why he sort of offered that word haltingly. So we understand that sex can occur in all these different ways and kink and everything. But one thing is agreed upon: when I say stop, or I have my code word, or whatever the deal is, it's over. We stop then. It's insane that we need a law to establish this.
Well, back on the topic of the law, Jackson spoke to this. He said his bill titled Revoke Consent for Intercourse never got a hearing in the Senate and will likely be dead for the remainder of the 2-year legislative session. He will continue to push similar bills until the law is changed. And as I said earlier, this is the only state where it's not a part of the law. However, in most states, it is actually a gray area. There are some states where consent can be withdrawn, including California, Kansas, South Dakota, and Maine. Only one state, Illinois, has codified this in law.
Well, that is wild.
It's just, but again, it's less about the law and more about what is wrong with guys, man. It's just it's not, whatever. It's almost impossible to find the right words. It's not that difficult.
Right.
It's it wouldn't, it's not that difficult.
There are those who would say this is a sexualized, always the case, but now hyper-sexualized and a hyper-violent culture. And you probably can make a pretty good argument for that in many ways. And in that environment, in this time, maybe this is the kind of conversation and legislation that has to go down.
And it's part of this overall movement of having people who aren't victims feel like victims, right? Right. This is the same logic. It's far more serious as the war on Christmas. Like, there's no war on men. Everything's fine. Everything as it was. We still have. You have control over your own life. Men are not suddenly powerless in this world, right? The idea that women should have the status that they should have had since the beginning of time is not a threat to you. And if 1 out of every 1,000 times, or 10 out of every 1,000 times, or 10 out of every 12 times, if you're this terrible at it, somebody's gonna tell you no in the middle of sex, you stop. It is not a threat to your manhood. But I guarantee you, in defending this bill, we know what some of the thought is, that women are somehow out to trap and trick us, and that women are gonna, oh, what about women who decide that there's some plan afoot here to rob you of what is yours. It is not yours. It requires 2 people, and if one of them's not into it, that's it. There's no consent. Sad day for you.
I think what you'll also hear on this, the argument against, is we don't need this bill. I mean, everybody knows that. Those people who aren't going to respect the word no aren't going to respect it more if this legislation passes. I think that's what you're going to hear a lot more of.
You don't like ads? Well, I hear you, brother. Did you know that you can become a Young Turks member, get the full 2-hour show every day on demand, plus so many other network shows, all ad-free for just $10 a month? Give it a shot right now, TYTnetwork.com/join.